Okay, this is going to be a short video on how to calculate percent word problems. Every word problem that we solve, I suggest we organize it using this method. In a percent word problem, there are going to be three numbers, one of which will be missing. And the three numbers will always be the part, the base or the whole, the rate, and of course everything is based on 100. I'm organizing these numbers into two fractions that are equal to each other. Your job in a word problem is to determine what numbers you're given and what numbers you want to find. Place them into these fractions, find the unknown, and use a very simple method of cross multiplication to find the missing number. Our first example. Say we were asked to find what is 10% of $1,450. Say that was your biweekly pay, and you wanted to know what 10% of that was, because you've heard from your financial advisor you should set aside 10% for savings. There's an easy way to do 10%, and then there's the way we do all questions. I'm going to set them up every single time the same method, so you never hesitate. Of course, you can use shortcuts when you see them. 10%, the percent is always a given. The percent always goes above the 100. In our case, 10% will go above the 100. We want to find out what is 10% of 1450. Your job is to figure out if the 1450 is the whole amount or the portion. And whenever you see the keyword of in a question, that pretty much indicates the whole amount. So in this particular question, we are given 1450 as the whole, also referred to as the base, and we're required to find the portion of that whole. To do the math, we're going to follow this method every single time. I want you to circle the number that's across from the x, or your unknown, your question mark, whatever you want to use, and we're going to use this method to complete the problems. We're going to multiply on the diagonal that we have both numbers for. In this case, we're going to take 1450, multiply it by 10, and then we're going to divide it by 100. You can see why sometimes a dot is used instead of an x for multiplication, so you don't get them confused. So 1450, multiply it by 10, and divide it by 100. You're going to get 145. So your answer is going to be, you should set aside $145 for savings, because that is 10% of 1450. You can double check that. 145 times 100 should equal 1450 times 10. The diagonals should always be equal in a percent word problem. Question number 2. Let's say you cut 36 pieces of pipe to install. Out of those 36 pieces, 22 were copper. My question to you is, what percent of your pipe that you cut was copper? So use the chemical symbol for copper. So you have two numbers, you want to find the percentage. You start with an organized method to solve a percent word problem. You do the part over the whole is equal to the percent over 100. We do not know the percent this time. The part out of the whole, we want to find the percent that was copper. So 22 is the part that was copper. The entire amount was 36. So to solve this question, we should circle the number that's across from the unknown on the diagonal, and then we're going to multiply our diagonals and solve the problem. So our unknown, our percentage is going to equal 22 times 100 divided by 36. So 22 times 100 is 2200 divided by 36. We're going to get an answer of 61.111. Repeating, that number is always a percentage. The unknown, if you're solving, is above 100. It's the percentage. Now, you have to reread your question. If you were given it on an assignment to make sure that you've answered it correctly, you'll be given hints about how you're supposed to round. For this question, I could do an exact, do 61.1 with a bar over it. That would be an exact rate. If I was told to do the nearest hundredths, I could do 61.11%. That was the percentage of the pieces that you cut that were copper. Here's a typical life situation. You go to the dentist, you get a bill, and your bill is for $37.50. You know that your dentist is going to bill the insurance company for the rest. You know that your insurance pays 80%. And you know that you're required to pay 20%. So your job, out of curiosity, is to figure out how much the bill was. What was the total bill? So you work through the process. And you want to figure out what you're required, what the bill actually was if you had to pay the full shot. 100 is the whole. Now $37.50 is clearly not the entire bill. It must be the part. It's going to go on the top. We do not know the entire amount of the bill. This is where a potential problem could arise if you're not thinking. $37.50 is what you pay as the consumer. The percent that you pay is not 80. The percent that you pay is actually 20. If you put 80 in there, those numbers don't match. 80% the insurance pays, you as an individual pay $37.50. To solve the problem, you need to cross multiply. So you're going to get your unknown total bill is going to equal $37.50 that you're going to pay times 100 from the formula and divide that by 20. So that's going to work out to be $37.50 times 100, 3,750 divided by 20. It's going to give you $187.50. That's the entire bill. A B part to the question could have been, what does the insurance pay? If you had been asked the B part for the insurance to pay, you could subtract the $187.50 by the $37.50, or you could do the question again, and you could have done it by determining 80% out of the 100, and then you could do the total now that you know it, 80 out of 100, and solve for the new part, or you can subtract the $87.50 from the $37.50 and get the remainder. $150 paid by the insurance. So that's a first couple of examples of how to set up the word problems, looking for your missing unknown, cross-multiplying and dividing to find an unknown number. The next video will be specific to finding discounts, tax, commission, etc.